It's now 11:33, 23:33. What can I say to you? Yes, I used to have several heady days. I still drink, but it's gone from partying to introspection. Which is not so good. Well, in some ways it's not so good, in some ways maybe it's better. We used to, Sheila's brother, when we first got married, Sheila's brother would rake around and drink an awful lot. And he went to New University of Ulster, and he would play rugby with Lauren Rugby Club. And he and his rugby club cronies would come to our place to drink and party. And we had some wild nights. It ended rather badly. I got very fed up with him using us as some place to crash. Got to be just walked in and took over the place, so I told him to clear off, and he hit me and threw a beer glass up against the wall. And he had to be restrained, and he was much bigger than I was, and he was a rugby player. I was never a rugby player. Remember. But there were nights. We used to live in a little house on the Deer Park Road in Coldwater, which was actually the graveyard house. It was beside the graveyard. It was owned by the graveyard people. the people who owned the graveyard. They had this little cottage affair. We lived there while I was a student, and we paid the rent. Mum was very affectionate. Doesn't get half enough affection back. While we were there, we would party. People would come and bring us gifts like railway sleepers. Brian and Alan Robinson and a guy we call Sydney, Ian Harvey. He's actually the only one I see at all regularly, Ian Harvey. He's an accountant. I've done some design work for him. They arrived one night and they came in, and they had poor Alan, who was this lanky, very amenable guy, long hair, really skinny, and they were carrying him, and he had blood running down his arm, and there was no skin on the back of his hand. And what had happened was they'd been drinking, and they decided that after they'd been drinking they would come and visit us. So they turned up after a little episode wherein they had decided to bring us a present, and the present was a railway sleeper, and that was a gigantic big log of rough-hewn wood. They were driving. Go to bed, Mum, go to bed, you're stinking, go to bed. They were driving Sheila's father's car, and they'd carted this railway sleeper out of a railway yard to the car, and they found they couldn't fit it in the car, so they stuck it in some way and had it hanging out the back door. And Alan sat in the back, and he was sitting trying to hold this railway sleeper in the car, and it was sort of stuck across the driver's seat, and Brian was driving like this. And Brian had forgot to make allowances for this railway sleeper jutting out the door, so he had scraped along a wall, and Alan's hand had been holding the thing, so the whole of the skin had come off the back of his hand. So when they had this accident, and instead of taking him where he should have been, which was the casualty department, they brought him back here, and we swabbed him down, sorted him out, and we sort of gradually settled down, and we had a lot of home brew, and we drank a lot of home brew, and just outside the front door of this little cottage was a field, and in that field there were sheep. So halfway through the night, Sydney took off with a hatchet, and their bringing us the present had gone sadly wrong. So what they decided to do was make up for it. What he decided to do was make up for it by going and getting us some fresh meat. So we spent about 3/4 of an hour running around a field after Sydney, who was running around the field with a hatchet chasing these sheep who were heavily in lamb or whatever. You know, they were about to drop all these lambs. And we eventually got him. The sheep were too fast for him. It's bloody lucky that none of them aborted. And later on that week, the idea of wood was still uppermost in these guys' minds. So again, we had a drinking session and decided we'd go and get some wood. So we went down the road to this sort of plantation place, and just over the hedge there was a log, gigantic big log. So we coasted the car down the hill with no lights on, stopped it, leapt over the hedge like commandos, lifted this gigantic big log and walked it back to the house. In the morning we discovered that what we'd got was a tree which had just been sawn down by the farmer, our neighbour, and which was you know, quite a valuable item. It would have been chainsawed into blocks and sold or used or whatever as firewood. So we were pretty happy about this. We thought this is a great thing to find and bring home. And then Sheila's father saw it and he said, "Where'd you get that from?" And we sort of told him, well, it was lying over the wall down there at the plantation. This was the beginning of summer, so we had to then bring back these guys and tell them, we're in trouble here, get yourself a bow saw. So we all set to with bow saws, carved up this tree trunk, and for that entire summer we had raging fires in the house because we had to get rid of the thing in case the farmer ever put two and two together and discovered that we were the ones who had stolen his wood and had it stashed in the garage. That was a sweltering summer. And there was never a day when we did not have a blazing wooden fire in the hearth. We pay for our mistakes. It all seems silly and grim to me now. But it must have been fairly hilarious at the time and good fun. I don't think I'd be capable of it now. I can remember the days when I just started drinking. I was drinking straight vodka, Carlsberg Specials, green chartreuse. Couldn't do it. Couldn't do it today. The other night I went to sleep only to be woken by Leia vomiting in her bed. Some sort of tummy bug. Sheila was on the night shift at this job she had in AVX. She's quit it. No. She quit her last night was the night before last. Leia was sick in her pillow and in her pyjamas, so I went in and changed her. And I was freezing. I'd had about an hour's sleep. So I changed her, settled her, cleaned up the mess as much as I could, and put her pillow at the other end of the bed and made her sleep at the other end of the bed because I didn't want to change the whole bed. I just didn't feel like it. So that was okay. Went back to bed, and then as soon as I got into bed, she was sick all over that end of the bed. So I brought her into my bed. I just left the mess, brought her into my bed, and she lay there for a while. And I hate the kids in the bed because they climb up my back, and it's okay in the morning when you've woken up and you can play with them, but middle of the night it's not great because they aren't compatible with adult human beings. Things were beginning to settle down when suddenly Leia puked all over my bed. So I had to do an impromptu job with towels and stuff, cleaning up, all the rest of it. Turned out that I didn't get any sleep at all after that. She dozed off a while, but I didn't make it. I'm sick of the kids. I light the fire because it was cold. I came down to light the range, cleaned out the range, and decided that instead of just using firelighters and coal, I would use firelighters, sticks and coal. So I got the hatchet, put my gloves on, got my coat on, went out the back door, almost feeling fresh, and got myself a block and started to chop up the block into firelights. And then I whacked my thumb with the hatchet. I was holding a piece of wood like that, and I went, which hit me just on the side of the nail, and luckily the hatchet was blunt, but I sort of did a 1/4 inch cut into my thumb. And the entire day blood was coming out of this, and I was changing plasters, and it throbbed all day. And there's no punchline to this at all. None at all. That's it.